everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are going to be talking about the topic of consumerism in the booktube space. So what this means for me is I see a lot of content creators who focus on books do so talking about it more as a collecting hobby, where they don't actually read a lot of the books they haul. They just buy more and more, and their channel really isn't about reading. It's more about the books themselves and the idea of reading. I think even if a booktuber does read a lot and take full advantage of their personal collection, it's also pretty common to see people make comments about how their TBR piles are getting out of hand, and they still feel the compulsion to buy all of the new releases that come out each month. Even though I don't make that many booktube videos, I do consume a lot of booktube content. It's probably like one of the main genres of videos that I watch on YouTube. So I am experiencing some of the effects of people showing off their giant libraries and constant stream of hauls. Personally, I also think sometimes you need an outsider looking in to a community to notice the cracks in the foundation. So that is what I'm going to be doing today. You may be asking, why would you not want to own a book? And all of my reasons overlap, but for me, it's really about waste of space, money, and resources. For one, it's wasteful in space, and I'm not a minimalist by any stretch, but I'm someone who really hates clutter and lives in a tiny apartment, so that really should say it all. Audiobooks and ebooks exist, and in some ways they are more accessible to someone who is striving to get into reading and wants to incorporate it in their daily routine. Number two is that it's wasteful of money, because libraries exist. You can have all the joy of a story without having to spend a dime. Or if you hate the story, you just have to return it and never think about it again. Whereas if you own it, you have this artifact that probably has a lot of negative energy attached to it that is just sitting in your home until you sell it or donate it. With libraries, no, you don't necessarily get the most pretty book every time, but you should really think for a second, when was the last time when you were reading a book you really thought about the cover, and did it truly make a difference to your reading experience? Lastly, it's wasteful in terms of resources, because this is something I want to do more research on. Ariel Bissett made a video on if books are bad for the environment, and the vibe is right now, like, not necessarily. Probably books have a better life cycle and use less harmful materials compared to a new e-reader. But also, if you're expending energy to create something new, that is negative to the world in some way because of the materials used and the energy consumed. The best way to help the planet is to not buy new things at all. So for me, the easiest answer is to just buy a used e-reader and get digital copies of new books, or check them out of the library, or look into audiobooks. Really, we just have to move away from a culture of buying things new, because we don't really think about the full lifespan of this man-made object now that it exists on this earth, and a lot of times it's not a very good impact. And I'm saying this not just in like a book context, but really it is a thing you should be thinking of in all aspects of your life. I don't think having a collector's mindset is bad in its entirety, because material goods do bring people pleasure, and owning a copy or even multiple copies of a story is worthwhile if it brings you joy. And I'm absolved from that feeling. I have a huge collection of Little Prince books since it's one of my favorite stories and has a lot of sentimental value to me. So I'm at the point where if I see an edition that I don't have already, I do want to add it to my collection. But if you feel that like every single story you want to read has to be this unique hardcover that sits on immaculately decorated shelves, and you really are only buying books to fill up those shelves and you don't spend a lot of time reading the books that you already own, are you really reading anything, or are you just a collector? And maybe it's controversial, but buying things because you think you should have them from either a societal or a community's standards is never a good way to live your life. And half the times, those standards are just fabricated by what you think is the norm, and the people that participate in the hobby don't meet those standards either. Or the people that you see as the standard have taken years and years to get to the point where they are in their collections. For me, I think that until you find that the hobby that you want to get into is conducive to your lifestyle, you shouldn't really go balls to the wall at the start. And I say that because, like what I said before, space and money are two of the things I have very little of, so I want to make sure that I'm applying them to the right places. So for me, when there are very easily accessible, free, or cheaper alternatives to getting books, why not use them? Shifting gears here, I do want to talk about the times when I do allow myself to buy books. I've given myself pretty strict reasons for when I can buy books, because I think those reasons have been successful in finding books that I enjoy to the fullest extent. So without further ado, let's get into that list. So things that make me want to buy a book over getting it from the library is if, number one, I want to annotate it. And I know from my experience of reading nonfiction in particular that I do want to highlight and write all over the pages instead of just taking page numbers down to refer back to later. And that isn't something I can do with a book that I don't own. A book I recently picked up that is in this category is this alternative Femininities book that I'm going to read, hopefully for a video that will come out in the future, and I'm really excited for it. Another time I will buy a book is when it is not readily available in my library, but it's a standalone and something I've done a lot of research on in terms of liking the plot. Series in general I found I try to avoid because they just take up so much space and are a really long-term commitment. Another time I will buy books is if it is the ideal version of a book. It's a really beautiful edition, and I know I will like the story because I've done a lot of research on it, and it's most likely secondhand. I will pretty much never buy a book solely for its cover. It has to be something I was already seeking ahead of time for reading purposes. This book here, Dark Corner, falls into that category. I got this off Thrift Books, and I found out about it through one of my gothic compendium books that I talked about in a previous what I read video, and I'm really excited to check it out. It sounds so interesting. I don't know if I'll read it now or closer to the fall time just because it has a more of a spooky gothic vibe. I will also buy a book if I just can't stop thinking about it after reading it, and I feel like having my own copy would be the answer to my prayers. And this is only for books that I've already read that I feel like they made a really big impact on me, enough to continue wanting to engage with them. And some of these books are ones that I felt I missed out on annotating the first time, but at least now I can put that time and effort into annotating a book that I already know that I like versus going into something blind. This copy of Dune is one such type of book. I think I hauled this in one vlog that I put up back in February. I was going to buy the deluxe edition of Dune, but then I found this for $1 at my local thrift store, and I couldn't be happier. There were a couple chapters early on that I wanted to go back and annotate because there were a few quotations that I had forgotten the page number of, and I wanted to go back and enjoy them again. And another time I will buy a book is if I am completing a series or I already like the author a lot and I want to continue supporting them. I did want to say somewhere that buying a book new is fine if you want to support the author, but consider getting a digital copy as a way to support them instead, since it's not like reading new works is limited to physical books only. For me right now, there's not a ton of authors whose books I know I will like wholeheartedly that I go out and buy them without knowing what the book is about at least a little bit beforehand. And serial completion for me is really just with manga, since in my youth, I would borrow books from friends and the library and then randomly buy volumes in the middle of series. So clearly I like the series enough if I was buying it at the 6th or 7th volume, and if I want to reread it or recommend it to a friend, I need to go back and get earlier copies as well. So that is just a quick look into my book buying habits and my thoughts on how maybe one should ideally build up their library. And at the end of the day, this system is just something that works for me. If having a pretty library of books you never touch is what makes you happy, then it's your money. All I can do is give my opinion from my perspective, and you doing you and me doing me is not hurting anyone. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching this video. Also, I keep forgetting to promote it here, but if you're interested in my cosplay content, I stream on Twitch every single Saturday afternoon. But that's all from me today. Thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!